Alright, today on the series we have the Cleveland Cavaliers, and yes, I'm recording this the same day that I recorded the New York video. I had to get them out. The Cleveland Cavaliers were coming off a year where they went 64-18 in 2024-25, and ended up losing the second round of the Pacers after dominating the regular season. In the offseason, they ended up drafting Tyrese Proctor with the 49th pick, and Salu Niang with the 58th pick. They re-signed Sam Merrill, and ended up trading for Lonzo Ball, and signing Larry Nance Jr. and Thomas Bryant in free agency. As for the losses, they lost Javonte Green and Ty Jerome in free agency. Chuma Okeke went overseas, and Isaac Okoro was the one that was traded away for Lonzo Ball. It was seen as kind of a championship or bust kind of year for the team coming in. Cleveland boasts one of the league's most balanced rosters and talent to compete for a championship, and they had those expectations, as they were coming in ranked number 3 in the power rankings. The Cavs were sitting at 14-11 after 25 games, a true disappointment after the very high expectations that this team had coming into the year. This could have been due to the fact that Garland missed the first 7 games and only played 9 of the first 25, or the fact that the team was without Max Strus and would be for at least the first half of the season. During this time, Donovan Mitchell was doing just about everything he could. He was averaging 30 points and playmaking about as good as we had ever seen. Evan Mobley wasn't looking like he'd take much of a jump, and Jarrett Allen, although was providing rim protection, was not looking like the same player we're used to seeing. His rebounding numbers were a little bit down. The front court of this Cavs team was definitely looking a bit sloppy, and the fact that Darius Garland wasn't consistently in the lineup was probably the leading cause of this. They didn't really have any playmakers or guys that could help with the spacing, so that Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen could excel down low, and it was really hurting the success of the team. The only other bright spot during this time was the rise of Jalen Tyson, showing off an incredible 3-and-D ability and being a reliable offensive option for this Cavs team each game. This is largely due to the fact that DeAndre Hunter was looking like a completely different player compared to the 6th Man of the Year candidate that we had seen in the year prior, and honestly his whole career. The remainder of the first half of the season was relatively the same. We saw Evan Mobley miss significant time with 2 separate injuries, but Darius Garland was in the lineup a little bit more consistently and ended up paying off after a little bit more time of him getting comfortable. We saw the team really catch a groove as they got into January and started to figure things out. They went on multiple 5-game win streaks as they approached the deadline and went in with a record of 31-21. The team knew they had to make some moves, especially to bolster their backup point guard area, and they had to get rid of DeAndre Hunter, as he was proven to be more of a liability than an asset at the time. The Cavs ended up trading DeAndre Hunter to the Kings, a second-round pick to the Bulls, and in return brought in Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis. A clear improvement to their guard depth and a sign that this team was looking to improve on a season that had been to this point quite disappointing. They weren't done though. They followed this up with a move that honestly came as a surprise as they traded away Darius Garland and a second-round pick to the Clippers for James Harden. Garland was too injury prone and wasn't really in the lineup very much for this team to be successful, so they looked to bring in an established veteran point guard to help with their overall production and playoff success. This showed to be a huge help for the Cavs as they went 21-11 after the deadline, looking like a much more rejuvenated team compared to the first half. The Cavs finished with a record of 52-30, good for 4th in the East, drawing Toronto in the first round. The first round for the Cavs was not easy for them. Donovan Mitchell and James Harden looked like completely different players, and the Cavs were forced to rely on their depth to pull out wins. This made it really tough for them as the Raptors' defense was suffocating just about every player on the floor. The series went to 7 games, and luckily for them, Donovan Mitchell came alive at the right time, helping them get out of round 1 alive. And in the second round, they ended up facing the struggling Pistons team. It was probably the best case scenario for them as they were having a ton of offensive struggles themselves. The series honestly came down to who was able to get hot and stay hot at the right times. Mitchell and Harden were still struggling mightily, but the team survived due to being a better overall offensive team than the Pistons, winning the series in 7 games once again. After 2 7-game series, nobody really knew what this Cavs team had left in the tank, especially as they were going up against a red-hot New York Knicks team in the conference finals. And to put this quickly, they got swept after blowing a massive lead in Game 1. They came out looking great, went up big against the Knicks, but this was only about for one half of basketball. Everything else after that was very disappointing, and none of the other games were even close en route to a sweep. The Cavs season ended there. They saw more success than many expected them to see at the halfway point of the year, but after what their expectations were at the start of the year, it was definitely a disappointing season. Now as we look ahead into the offseason, the Cavs have picked number 29 in the draft and are positioned to bring in a solid depth piece behind their main core. 2 players that they could look to bring in both at different positions, a guard in Malik Thomas or a floor spacing big in Henry Visar. Thomas is an explosive scoring guard who combines elite shooting, deep range, and quick twitch athleticism with strong playmaking instincts, decision making, and defensive upside, making him one of the most dynamic and well-rounded offensive guards of the 2026 class. He would give the Cavs some relief without Mitchell and Harden on the floor, an area that was a definite hole for them, even after they brought in Dennis Schroeder. Visar is a skilled modern center who combines size, floor spacing ability, interior scoring, and passing, making him one of the most productive offensive big men in college basketball. After a breakout junior season at North Carolina, he shot 42% from 3 on solid volume and provided strong rebounding, rim finishing, and playmaking from the post and elbows, showcasing real offensive versatility. While not an elite athlete, his shooting touch, IQ, competitiveness, and steady production give him a high floor as a dependable NBA rotation big. Would definitely provide huge benefit to the Cavs at a backup big option. As we all learned, the veteran additions did not solve the playoff problem. Cleveland traded for James Harden and Dennis Schroeder to add experience, but the team was still swept by the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. And unfortunately for them, their payroll is at a historic level. The Cavaliers carried the largest payroll in franchise history and were the only team above the second apron, creating significant roster building restrictions. But on a brighter note, the core remains under contract. Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen are all under contract, giving Cleveland continuity despite the disappointing finish. But questions arise if this unit will be able to bring a championship to Cleveland, creating lots to think about as they head into the offseason. Defensive concerns definitely surfaced during the playoffs. While Harden and Mitchell were effective offensively together during the regular season, both were targeted repeatedly by New York and honestly every team in the playoffs, exposing defensive vulnerabilities in the backcourt and areas for improvement that they should look to target this offseason. They have the Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Mobley, and they have Jarrett Allen protecting the rim. It is definitely an issue at the guard position, even off the bench, that they should definitely look to address in the offseason. As for offseason decisions, James Harden's contract is probably the biggest one. Harden has a player option and could either opt in, restructure his deal, or become a free agent. His decision will heavily influence Cleveland's ability to get below the second apron. He has said he's 100% committed to this team. We have heard this in the past from James. It has also come out that all things are pointing to him opting out of his player option to come back on a restructured team-friendly type of deal to allow them to improve the roster. James Harden's playoff struggles really impacted the team's overall success. In the playoffs, he averaged 19.6 points per game and a career-high 4.7 turnovers per game. Harden had 9 games this postseason with at least 5 turnovers, so this team-friendly deal should be nowhere near his current $42 million salary. As I've already mentioned before, this team's financial flexibility is extremely limited. Cleveland's projected to remain above the second apron again next season, meaning its future first-round pick stays frozen and its trade options remain restricted. Donovan Mitchell is extension eligible now. He's publicly expressed his desire to stay in Cleveland and can sign a massive 4-year extension this summer, making him the cornerstone of the franchise's long-term plans. There were a ton of questions about his future as the team came into the year, making it a championship or bust type of year. But this team saw improvement as the season progressed and found themselves in the conference finals. This is the first kind of postseason success that Donovan Mitchell has ever had, and signs are now pointing towards him coming back and wanting to be here for the rest of his career. He could, however, wait until next season where he will be eligible for a 5-year, $352 million contract. But he would be playing out the year on an expiring deal, kind of taking a chance. Another free agent decision that kind of revolves around the role players, Dean Wade. He emerged as a valuable two-way role player and was a playoff starter for this team. The Cavaliers can use bird rights to re-sign him despite their cap situation, and out of all their players slated to enter the open market, he's definitely the highest priority to bring back. To have him, as well as Jalen Tyson coming off the bench, and they can honestly swap him out in the starting lineup each and every game, is 2 very solid players for them at the wing there. Another thing that I've definitely mentioned before is their depth. It remains a concern. Injuries and roster turnover forced coach Kenny Atkinson to use 41 different starting lineups during the regular season, highlighting the need for more reliable rotational pieces, an area that they can definitely look to improve on in the draft with either Malik Thomas or Henry Visar. But luckily for this team, the championship window is still open, but pressure is mounting. Cleveland has enough talent to contend, but after consecutive playoff disappointments and mounting financial constraints, the front office must decide whether to stay the course or make another significant change. There's a lot of talk about them possibly firing Kenny Atkinson due to some subpar coaching and subpar decision making throughout the playoffs, but then it came out that this team is committed to Kenny Atkinson being the head coach. I mean, analytically, they did win the conference finals. So who knows what this team could have done if they actually won the conference finals. The Cavaliers remain built around a talented core led by Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. But a costly roster, second apron restrictions, and another disappointing playoff exit make this offseason a pivotal one for Cleveland's championship aspirations.